Orlando Report, where I share my 45 years of experience to help you manage your portfolios and protect your wealth. Remember to subscribe, like, and share these videos. Well, folks, sorry about yesterday. Life is a bit of a roller coaster around here. So back today, so I'm glad to be back with you all. We're going to talk about some of the long-term trends that I see and some things that I think we need to be paying attention to. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the new tariffs and things that are happening. Let's get into tonight's video. Hey, welcome, folks. Sorry about last night, just trying to get things back and roll. I came in here, had all kinds of glitches. Claude is having issues with their servers. One of the issues with having a third party outside, and I learned this lesson a long time ago, is when you depend on other sources for to run your business, it can get pretty ugly. But anymore, it's almost impossible to try to run your business without having outside sources. The only issues I've had over the last 30 years, especially with the software, is having issues with the data vendor. If we can't get data, we can't run the servers. And that's the same thing that's going to happen. It's going to be interesting because I didn't really want to start here, but it will kind of lead into where I'm going, is, obviously, a lot of firms are starting to depend on some of these big LLMs like myself and many others, the major players, and a lot of folks building their own GPTs and their own databases to be able to run artificial intelligence. And it's going to be more and more interdependent, which will be interesting to the internet and to some of these large firms. So I experienced a lot last night. Claude's been having trouble overnight. I probably took me I couldn't get the data sheets run last night. So just know I've got one more meeting tonight. One of the people I work with for IT is in India, so I will have discussion with him in a few hours. We're getting pretty close to releasing these all the fact sheets, so you can run them on anything. So ever so close, finally. So there's one thing we're going to do is you have to register to download the file. There's a couple little things we're working on that part. There's one other issue with things, but a really good example is last night just running, kept getting errors and different things. So I'm going to be putting some video series together that will be for utilizing these data sheets. They're very powerful, and I'm working on yet another one that is even going to do much more, especially in more intricate trade design, things of that sort. And I was talking to one of you folks out there yesterday in the field that I had was helping with an issue, and one of the things that we're going to see is everything is having intelligence. I've been working on rebuilding the database that you folks see every day, and what I'm doing most importantly is just like what I did with the data sheets. I'm putting intelligence into the software, meaning that it knows how to interpret, from my viewpoint, the master of the database and the architect of the database that you folks will see here in a few minutes. And what that does, it gives me the ability to do the analysis exactly how I know it should be done, and to view what the outcomes are on things. So now I can report to you. So a lot of the old reports that used to be just what you're going to see in a minute, the static page of numbers, those numbers will be interpreted. There'll be executive summaries, there'll be probabilities, there'll be a lot of other things that are more forward-looking, plus giving you further understanding. And for those of you that are using the software for working with clients, even writing up client reports and all types of things that are just going to come out naturally out of the logic, so you won't have to do a lot of these things. So anyway, but that kind of triggered me from just trying to get ready here just now. I've been struggling with Claude to spit out the report that I show you every night. So hopefully it'll stabilize. But the other thing that we have to deal with is when they update their models, there's a integration period, normalization, just like a lot of things that I talk about in the markets. When you have certain things happening, I'm going to talk to you about something I see occurring in all of the major indices right now. That's going to be one of the discussions that we'll have tonight. So, and I have intentions over the next couple of days of writing a report on the Russell 2000 and some of the sub indexes and how what kind of a performance I'm expecting there, because I know a lot of folks have been chomping at the bit, especially with the Russell, that there's some kind of mega super trend coming. So I'm going to address a lot of the issues from my viewpoint and what my data is telling me, and we'll go from there. So let's get into the markets. Not any real material news came out today. Nothing's coming out tomorrow. And you saw the markets traded virtually very range bound. We're seeing the volatility collapse again, which is somewhat concerning, because when that happens, that tends to lead to a little bit of negative movement on the downside. And we're still seeing some moderate rotation in database that I'll show you here in a minute. So I think, from the overall market conditions, I mean, it just gets flatter and flatter, and there's no news. I mentioned in last night's Substack talking about how the markets have become numb to anything on tariffs. I mean, it's like, okay, tomorrow was supposed to be a deadline. Oh, no, let's make it August 1st. And somebody, trying to paraphrase their comment that they made, I don't know if it was on Twitter or I think it was on YouTube channel from maybe a couple of days ago. And, it's like maybe this is part of Trump's game to kind of move the targets around and do these things. I'm still frustrated. Last night's headline was, 90 promises and 2 deals, and they're not even deals, they're partial. And so renegotiating the entire world isn't going to happen in a few months. So maybe Trump built some very bad expectations for what he was going to do, because he could solve wars in 2 days and renegotiate the entire world trade in a couple of weeks, and that's not what it's like. There's a lot of things. We'll see. There are rumors around that the EU is coming to the table fairly quick. We'll see if we get anything out of that, whether there's impact on there. There certainly is not any economic news to even discuss for tomorrow. Next thing of any interest will be the claims numbers, and I'll wait till tomorrow night to discuss those as we go through the rest of this week. I should be able to be present the rest of the week, as far as I know. That's a little some dynamic issues around my life right now that I sometimes have to deal with, like yesterday, which happened right at when I was supposed to go live. I found out 2 hours earlier that I wasn't going to be able to do that. So let's, I think one of the other things that I'm seeing happening is, I mentioned also in the Substack last night, and I have to bring this up. I grew up in the institutional world in the big wirehouses, and the Morgans and Merrill. I was an ex-Merrill guy, and Merrill Institutional. And all I can tell you is, I saw something from Goldman's moving, their expectations up for this year, which really concerns me, because these guys are never right. I told you about Ed Yardeni used to be our head economist when we were all young men back in, early, we'll call it 1982, 83, 84. and when Ed said anything, we just faded him, and we're the institutional arm of the bond trading, and we're fading our economists, so because he was never right. These guys are never right. CBO's never right. Not on anything big. They're always behind everything. The Federal Reserve is never right. Look at what I'm starting. I've been talking about that, and I believe this. I don't think it's going to happen in the July meeting from the standpoint of lowering yields, but I think what we'll see is still looking in October-ish. For sure, I think we'll get 50 basis points lower, so 2 drops of 25% at some stage. I think the pressure on Powell through the executive branch and a lot of people that are coming out like, why aren't you doing something? Is this really a TDS situation where Powell's really just trying to do anything? And I've even mentioned it many times. Is he just trying to do anything to disrupt the Trump agenda? Maybe that malicious, may not be, but I do think that we will see some drops in interest rates, and I'll talk about this. I mentioned it, I think, when I went through the longer term aspects. We talked about the yield curve, I think, last week, and that is telling me that we do need that front end of the curve down, but I don't think the back end of the markets are going to move much. I was talking to a mortgage banker that I know, and they were, I was trying to tell them that, they thought, maybe the whole curve will come down by 50 basis points. It could, but I don't see it. And you already see, just as I talk about, I think what I will do is I'll go through treasuries, and I'll also touch on the dollar a little bit just to bring in some context. But the back end of the yield curve is not going anywhere. And I will argue that it's even 2% below what's normal for the last 30 years. 6% is more on the 10 years as the average yield, I think, for the last 30 or 35 years. So we're still below, relatively speaking, how the U.S. economy has run in the past. We're still relatively cheap on interest, even though a lot would argue that we are not, mainly because of the years that we had. I don't want to go too deep on this subject, but the years that we had with artificially held down interest rates because of the GFC, and then, of course, then we had the pandemic, and there's just been multiple shock waves or events that have happened to cause the Fed to artificially keep rates lower. And, for the last several years, those of you who've been around the channel, that I've been talking about that if the market rates were floating, we would be, when we were really down at zero, we would have been about 1.5 to 2.5 plus. And so hopefully the markets will get back in control like the old days when I started sorting the market a little bit before, when the market rates where the Fed would adjust to market rates, not the other way around. And so the tail's been wagging the dog for so long. Everybody thinks that's how it works, and I don't believe that's exactly what's going on here. So let's try to get to a conclusion here on the front end of this broadcast tonight, and just kind of summarize that I'll be focusing in on some of the interest rate activity as we get closer to the next Fed meeting, and we'll start to bring in some probabilities on what's likely to happen from there. But other than that, we're looking at pretty boring markets at the moment. We are down. We finally got a little selling coming in overnight, but we're down to 62.65. We're still in the range that we traded in all day yesterday. I managed to trade fairly well in spite of it, but it's sometimes these narrow ranges you can be more aggressive on size, and if you have confidence that we're going to stay range bound. And it looks like we got at least another day of range bound on. So let's set up tonight's show. I'll go ahead and do the database as I usually do. Then we'll go through the indexes fairly quick, and we'll cover Dow and we'll do U.S. interest rates, dollar, gold, and then we'll hit Bitcoin, and we'll be able to call it quits for tonight. So let's go ahead and take a look at the database. So this is the weekly database. Let's go over to the daily. Nothing's working. Hopefully the stream is working. That's very interesting. Everything seems to be frozen. There's the big beautiful bill. I'm just trying to get things to work here. Interesting. I got lights blinking. Everything's going crazy here, folks. And yeah, there's definitely something going on in here, folks. I am sorry. I'm going to go off screen for just a minute, try to fix something. Okay, folks. Looks like I got a pretty big technical issue. I'll talk to you for a few more minutes. Give me a thumbs up that the stream is working okay, because it looks like it's an internet situation going on here. Nothing will refresh. TradingView won't refresh. Nothing's working. So, yeah. Yeah, so let's do some interaction here. Let me just yeah, something Chi-Town Tony is asking, can you explain the connection with the with the sorry, I'm just looking here. I've got I got all my studio lights are flashing. Hang on one second. Hang on one second. I may have gotten something to work. Yeah, there's something going on. So I don't know if it's something with the Mac. I did reboot yesterday, so typically this thing will stay up for a while, but just trying to get a symbol in TradingView, I'm just getting a spinner right now. So not that you folks don't believe me, but you can see it's just spinning. Nothing will even come up. So let's go ahead and just chat about a few more things. And why don't you ask some questions, and we'll do that. Hopefully something will change here. There's really so. Let me just go off memory and talk a little bit about what I see going on with with the markets. We are seeing one of the things like with the S&P and the NASDAQ, we're seeing that volatility contraction where the market grid gets tighter and tighter. That typically will indicate that the markets are going to turn down. There's going to be a bit of a negative rotation. Somebody posted here, I did see it before I started. I did see it. Yeah, you probably see lights flashing. There's some really crazy things going on. So it's definitely with the Mac. I'm not sure what's going on. Actually, in the process of buying a new studio. Anyway, so yeah, very distracting to try to work when all your equipment, nothing's working in your environment. So I think one of the things that we're seeing on the indexes, just going off memory and what in my review, is that we're really seeing that the markets are contracting, and typically that contraction is a precursor to some decline. I still don't see any major declines happening here. The type of configuration all the markets are in are really just more sideways to down. There's no news tomorrow, so we're going to be operating on sentiment. The tariffs have been postponed. Maybe there's something out of Europe that comes up, but nothing's really popping up. Let's see if I can at least bring up this, if I can at least get this screen we can talk. All right, so let's go over here and just talk about it. Yeah, stream is lagging. Yeah, interesting. That's funny. I was just talking when in my opening comments about all the interdependence that we have between internet, LLMs, third-party users, in our case, our data vendors, all of this stuff. We've always had these interactions with other companies, and to make this company run for many, many years, for decades. And so you always have that. And as I mentioned earlier, the only thing I have, it looks like, yeah, I mean, I have shut down everything I can and I have lots of memory, 36 gigs of memory. So I don't know that that's the case, but I'll shut down some of this stuff just to see if it gets any more resources. Yeah, there's definitely going on. So let's go over and take a look at least something I have. That's funny. Now, now even my Stream Deck is not working. So let's see if we can do this. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is hopefully soon you folks will be looking at this same screen. This is the data input over here on the side of what comes into Claude when we're running this. But let's take a look. So we're looking at 75% support test, and what that means. So let's look and see what the commentary is coming out of Logic is telling us. Yeah, nothing's working here. It's crazy. All right. So let's just take a look here. See if I can get this somewhat. If we look at the commentary, it's just testing critical levels, all kinds of support is 6258. We're trading just above that, 6570. Everything light volume, narrow ranges, everything I'm telling you. Here's the probability for the grid here. R2 6299. I tried doing a trade looking for that 6292 last night. Never got there. current 66, 65% probability to reach 84. 58 is the current target on the downside. So S1, R1 is a pretty narrow range. We're at 66. Like I said, there's nothing really here. Let's see what the trade setups are going. So buy S1 test, you're buying 59 to 61, looking for a bounce back to 85, 57 as a stop. That's pretty tight, actually. I would use some better. That looks tight to me, but if you, it's only 4-point risk to try to make. It's a pretty good ratio, actually. The range trade is 62.59, buy zone, sell zone. So you're just selling these higher end ranges, 82 to 85. So you got a 26-point range defined. So that when I see if I can get this to work. Yeah, so I have something called Stream Deck, and I can just push a button and change scenes. Nothing's working. My studio lights are blinking the whole bit. So I think what we'll do is we're gonna. I apologize. We're gonna just have to shut this thing down because I can't get to anything to talk to you about stuff. So, but I could answer a few questions that if you have some questions for me, that might work. We can hang around and do that. Maybe that's what's supposed to happen tonight. But all of these markets are in these range bound right now, and it's and maybe I forgot the theme of summertime blues, right? And that's exactly what's going on. Yeah, if you could see my screen, my studio screen right now, it's got some weird things going on. Is the stream still lagging? Are you folks still there?